I'm Bee.
And I'm Renske.
We are so grateful that you are here.
Welcome to School of Joy. Welcome to episode number 5. We're going to be talking about people pleasing today. We will share our own experience as hardcore people pleasers.
Yeah.
And we're going to discuss where the people pleasing behavior comes from energetically, how it plays out, and how we can change it as well. We're going to give you some tools later on as well that we find very helpful in our life to release that behavior of people pleasing. B, maybe you can start. How did people pleasing play out in your life?
Yeah, in a very big way. I think probably everyone listening can relate to being a people pleaser. I think women especially, but men too. I think we have a big issue with people pleasing probably in our culture. And yeah, I think for me, the thing that really helped me understand what people pleasing really was about was I was listening to Gabor Mate, who is, I think I've mentioned him before, but he's an amazing Canadian physician who looks at trauma and sort of childhood development. And he was saying that in an ideal world, if we were perfectly brought up, we would be able to be our authentic selves and we would be able to be fully embraced by our tribe. We're tribal beings. That is sort of the ideal environment for the brain, I guess, to develop. And what he said, which was just so enlightening for me really, was if it's not safe for that child to be authentic, then they will sacrifice their authenticity to be accepted by the tribe, because ultimately being accepted by the tribe means survival. And actually, that's our number one goal, as a baby, as a child, and survival comes first, of course. So if that means abandoning our authenticity, then we will. And so I think that really spoke to me, because I think for me, then people pleasing and being authentic are kind of, in a way, these opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah.
And when we give ourselves to other people, when we choose to people please and not honour our own needs and our own boundaries, then we are in a way abandoning our authenticity. And so acknowledging that, we talked in the last episode about acknowledging, accepting, embracing. I think when I acknowledged that had played out deeply in my life, I was able to then see it. And actually, I think what I've experienced a lot in my life is that when I have been a people pleaser, and I still am now, of course, that still plays out in my life. It's a tough one to completely shake away, but I do feel I'm living much more authentically now. But I think for a long time, I would give to others, and actually I would feel bitter almost about giving away my energy to others. I would end up being sort of resentful. They would even sometimes come across as passive aggressiveness, because I wasn't giving from a place of love and from a boundaried place. Yeah. So that's sort of the summary of my experience.
Yeah, I think that boundaries in relationship to people pleasing are so interesting. At least for me, they have been my whole life. As I said, a hardcore people pleaser for most of my life, boundaries were just really hard and vague. Even like I didn't even know how to set a boundary. I wasn't aware of what I was, what I needed really, and what I wanted, because for most of my life, I've been so focused outside of myself, trying to create that harmony and balance, like outside of myself, that I simply forgot over the years, I guess, what I wanted. And that played out in little things, but also in big things. I guess a good example is in relationship. Before my current relationship, I would literally be like a chameleon almost in a relationship with with another person, like in like a romantic relationship I then speak about, I would take on the interests of the other person as my own almost. I would really struggle to distinguish what I actually really like and what the other person likes, like what the difference was, because as I said, I would completely forget that over time. I guess probably from the need to be accepted by the other person. I think that's nowadays when I want to check in with myself, am I being authentic to myself? I ask the question, where am I seeking approval or appreciation from someone else? And if not, then I feel that I'm being authentic to myself. If I do, then yeah, it always feels out of balance. So boundaries is a big thing, has been a massive lesson for me. And knowing whether the boundary comes from love or the fear of not being accepted is for me now actually like a tool. Like, because I've learned also to shift that people pleasing energy, I can now more easily see, okay, this boundary is coming from a place of wholeness and love. I then feel neutral about setting that boundary and making that choice. But when I feel, like you said before, like when you feel certain resentment or a certain judgment, even or towards myself or towards the other person, if I would feel sometimes even angry, but I didn't show it,
Yeah.
of course. I would never show my anger, but I would feel it underneath the choice. Then I know, okay, I'm not being authentic. Then my boundary comes from fear, really. So that is for me in my life at the moment. It has become a tool, but of course I had to practice that many times to be able to use it as a tool, because in the beginning, it's, as I said before, it's so vague still. You don't even know where you're choosing from many times. I think the best example I have of where I've been learning this again lately, because I do believe we come back to similar lessons, yet with a different level of consciousness, with a different awareness, so we can go deeper. So don't think we're meant to completely release that people pleasing. It's just that we have layers of releasing that over and over and over. Yeah, and for me, the latest lesson in that is within my current relationship. My partner has two beautiful daughters, and once we were together for about a year, he actually expressed his need to see his daughters more. He was only seeing them every other weekend, and he expressed his need of wanting to see them 50% of the time of the week. And I was like, yeah, sure, I love the girls to bits as well, and let's make it happen. And it wasn't that I didn't want that, just in that whole process of transitioning to living together as a family with the girls for 50% of the time, later on I realized, wow, I've been making all these choices in this whole change process from trying to make others happy. And after a while I realized, because I felt completely overwhelmed, and I realized this is like, I'm going way over my capacity. I've been trying to please everyone, trying to create this harmony outside of myself, thinking that would give me harmony as well. But it never works this way, of course. It works from the inside out. So that was, again, another lesson in people pleasing. And the moment I expressed that, JP, my husband, he asked me like, okay, well, and it was not a judgmental question or whatever. He simply asked, what do you need then? What do you want in the whole situation and in the whole change process? And I started crying because I realized, I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer to your question right now. Like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need, because I've been already too far into this whole process, forgetting myself and choosing from the perspective of others. So that's been that must have been like 3 years ago now. So that's sort of my latest lesson, I think, in releasing beliefs around the people pleasing. And it continues to be a lesson in the dynamic that we live together, because that's just what it is when I guess when you're a like we call it bonus mom, we don't call it stepmom, but when you're a bonus mom, you're constantly, um, or not constantly, but you're hyper aware, I feel, of where can I step in? Am I being too much? Am I being too little? Because they're not my biological children, you know. It's not my role to become their mum, because they already have a beautiful mum, you know. So that's not my role. So I'm constantly, it's such a massive gift for me to learn, you know, where I um um how I'm considering others' needs, my bonus daughters, as well as what are my needs in this still as well. Like can I still set a boundary as well in my needs? So yeah, I'm not sure if that, like, it was quite a big share. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think when it comes to children, actually, it's a really challenging one. I mean, I obviously, don't. I'm in it as part of a step family. We just have our own biological daughter, but it still is a struggle because, of course, it's very easy to want to put our children's needs completely first.
Mm.
So it is a challenging one. I mean, my mum, she had 4 children, and I really believe that there was so much self-sacrifice going on, and nowhere near enough self-care. And she just ended up completely depleted. And I think for me, I mean, it is something that I find challenging, but I want my daughter to see me doing self-care and, doing things that nourish me, and see me looking after myself and resting,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it
Yeah.
is hard, it is tough with your children because, of course, you're sort of biologically driven to give them everything.
Mm.
Yeah.
How do you manage that for yourself?
Well, I mean, self-care for me is a huge part of my just general routine. So, she's used to me meditating. So she knows, in the morning, Mama meditates and she goes downstairs with Tom, and she knows that I work out. And, all these things, they're just part of our routine. When
Mm.
it comes to things that aren't in the routine, we've all been a bit unwell the last couple of weeks, and so I've needed more rest. I do find it challenging, but I think, as you shared earlier, I feel that when we set boundaries for ourselves, I think that it's like a muscle that we're flexing all the time. And I think that, for most of us, probably that muscle is quite weak.
Mm.
And the more we do it, the easier it becomes because, we are humans, and, we live in this crazy sort of capitalist culture where we're expected to be busy and on it and productive all the time. But we're not robots, we are humans.
Mm.
And we have needs. And I think the more that we can step into being an advocate for ourselves and honoring our needs, like how I experience it, interestingly, actually, is the more that I step into my authentic self and step away from people pleasing, what I'm acknowledging is that actually people who are really big people pleasers actually make me feel less safe,
Mm.
because what I realize is that I am always second guessing myself with them. Do they really want to be doing this? Do they really want to come and, and
'Cause you
and
know where they come from, right? Because you've been doing that as well.
and actually, what I'm realizing, and we're going to touch on this in the next episode, but the more I surround myself with people that are doing the inner work, that are setting boundaries, like I feel that with us when we're making the podcast, and
Mm.
there's a huge amount that goes into it, of course. But what I love is that I have this deep sense of trust that if you need something, that you'll say. Actually, that's a really, really nice place to be in your relationships when you
Mm,
know the other person will speak their truth, because then when they are willing to give to you, you can trust it and you can accept that with a really open heart and with gratitude, rather than, I think for me, with people that are, big people pleasers, it feels sort of, I feel this sense of suspicion.
mm.
It feels unsafe to accept from them, or mm, unclear really what I should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. I guess how I feel about what you're saying is that's, to me, that's law of resonance at play. You changing your frequency, you changing your consciousness, shifting your consciousness allowed you and I, to make choices differently, to set the boundaries, because I think that's something that I've come to understand on this journey as well, is the choices we make are like 95% of the time unconscious. So they come from the energy that we hold within our being. And so if we find it hard to set a boundary, that's from the unconscious energy that we hold. If we then start to change that energy and bring it to consciousness, then of course the choices that we're going to make are going to be different, because we simply hold a different energy within our being. And if we hold a different energy within our being, we're going to resonate to different frequency, vibration. So we're going to attract different people in our lives. And that's how I feel about our relationship or other relationships in my life. Um, it becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes so much easier, and you just feel a certain calm. And I guess if we do still come across people that are not able to do that yet and still hold a high level of wanting to people please, um, I guess the way I work with it is then still looking at how am I responding to that? What's my energy towards that? And if I feel neutral about it, if I just let them do what they do and it doesn't affect me that much, um, then I know I don't hold any, unresolved energy around that. But if it still triggers me to some degree and I start then doubting myself and I start trying to figure out what they really want and worry about that, then I know, okay, this is something for me as well. It's not just them, it's also something for me because I'm triggered by it to some degree. So I guess that's how I see it. Yeah. But yeah, I think the one big thing, if you're listening, and if you wish to change that people pleasing behavior, it's so important that you open up to going within. Because that's where the big change then starts to happen. And with going within, I mean working with that unconscious programming, with those hardwired beliefs beneath the behavior.
Yeah. And so we mentioned at the beginning that we'd sort of talk about some tools. Do you have anything you can share for specifically for that, for working with that people pleasing energy?
Yeah, for me, the one big question I ask myself if I do feel in a way triggered, to set a boundary, if setting a boundary doesn't come easily, I ask myself the question, where do I want to um, where do I want acceptance, acknowledgement, appreciation, and approval of others? And this is something my mentor, Joanna Rushton, taught me when I just started the Master's Way myself as a student. When she shared that with us, I remember like writing it down straight away, the 4 A's: acceptance, acknowledgement, appreciation, approval. It's like, this is such a great question to come back to when I feel that a boundary is hard to make, to set. So that's a tool for me, 100%, because that gives me a first a first awareness, a first acknowledgement of my energy, of where I'm sitting in that. And last episode, we touched on the law of love with the 3 steps of acknowledgement, acceptance, embrace. And once I've come into that acknowledgement, I think my tool to come into an acceptance of it and to then shift it, the energy, is really to sit in my heart center. So to do meditation, or actually, can you really do meditation? To sit in meditation, because you're simply being it when you're meditating. But to sit in my heart center and to use meditation to come to a level of acceptance of that, to start to shift the energy and to learn from it rather than to replay that energy. So those 2 are probably my biggest tools at the moment. The acknowledgement phase is really about asking the question, reflecting, even journaling, writing down how I feel, because as I said before, as a people pleaser, if we're really hardcore into that behavior, it's sometimes even difficult to know how we feel. And for me, the journaling and writing down really helps as well to become aware, oh, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what my needs are and my wants are at the moment.
Yeah.
So the journaling helps, and then going into heart space, to meditate. What is that? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I literally heard Joe speaking on a different podcast the other day about those 4 A's, I was driving and I stopped the car to write it down because I was like, oh yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is such a great tool. I think as well for me, um, I'm I feel I've been very disassociated from my body for a very long time, and that's something that's slowly shifting. And I feel that for me, the easiest way to check in of whether I need to sort of set a boundary is to listen to how my body feels. So for instance, the other day I was driving home with a friend, and all her trains were cancelled. And for me to take her back to her house was going to be over an hour extra onto my journey, which was, I think, already 2.5 hours. So it was quite a big detour. And anyway, she was on the phone and she was trying to sort out another way back from where I was supposed to be dropping her off. And it was really nice actually, because I was like, I had a bit of time, she was distracted. And I thought, okay, I could take her home. How does this feel for me? And I just sat with it and quietly. And I sort of just checked in with, how does the idea of taking her home and adding that extra time onto my journey sit in my body? And it just sat fine, And it's the kind of thing that in the past, perhaps it wouldn't have sat fine, but I'd have felt obliged to offer her the trip back
Yeah.
anyway.
You would completely ignore the signs of your body. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have just done it out of complete obligation, and then really inwardly I would have been resenting it, which I think is it's really harmful to ourself. But that didn't happen, and so when she came off the phone, I said, "Hey, I'll just take you home." And of course, then she really doubted. She really doubted where I was offering that from. Oh, are you offering this from obligation? She didn't say that, but of course, I could feel that she was unsure whether or not she should accept. And then we actually had a similar conversation to the one we're having now, where I said, it really is offering this from a place of love. Anyway, I think that's been quite a good tool for me. How does this sit in my body? How does this feel? Taking a moment rather than giving straight away from obligation.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, it's something I'm learning. I'm definitely not mastered it yet, but I do feel the more I practice honoring myself and setting boundaries, the easier that becomes. And I feel that there is this sort of message that you're sort of giving yourself. It's like it is a message of self-love and self-worth. Is this
Mm.
something I can give? And I don't know. For me, for me, it feels like I've stepped into this much more powerful place
Mm.
through making decisions like that from an authentic place rather than from a people-pleasing, obligatory place.
I love that. Yeah, the body is so much smarter than the mind, and we completely sometimes even ignore it, right? When you share this, it makes me realize that I do have another question that I ask myself in boundary setting. And I ask myself, do I have the capacity for this right now? If someone asks me to do something, or yeah, whatever that is, then I ask myself, do I have the capacity for this? And even in my business, I start to ask this more because I love creating, I love creating in my business and being creative in my business. That comes very easily. I guess that's also sometimes a trick for the mind to fall into, because then I just jump into things too quickly sometimes and feel overwhelmed after. So the question in my business can be also often, do I have the capacity for this? So if we relate this to the example of this podcast, when we had this idea coming up, I was asking myself, do I have the capacity for that? And when you were very clear about, what you were willing to do for it all at the moment, not saying that that's not going to change, but the time and effort and energy you can put into it, I knew the only capacity I have right now is to rock up for a chat and record it.
Mhm.
And we sort
Yeah.
of agreed on that. And that felt very aligned and very in balance, even though you are doing outside of the recording a lot more at the moment. That's your capacity right now. So I felt, yeah, that's an example of that question. What do I have capacity for at the moment, to be able to set the boundary? Because probably like 3 years ago, I would have gone way over my capacity and promised things that I wasn't going to be able to deliver, and then feel yeah, shit for it afterwards. Um, but that again, that
Yeah.
that would have come from that energy that I was holding, just simply to make me aware of that energy. And I really, really resonate with what you shared at the beginning and throughout this chat, that the more authentic we can live, the fewer people pleasing we do, because it's, as you said, it's like opposites of the same energy, of the same really, but it's just a higher vibration and a lower vibration. I can totally resonate with that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I feel that doing the spiritual work and being more connected, and I guess just in general raising my frequency, means that I can trust as well. We've talked about trust lots already, but I think it's this trust of the abundance is there. I can say no, and abundance is still gonna
Yeah,
come. Like
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I just feel that I'm in this frequency of abundance now.
Mm.
And so it really is okay for me to take things slow or say no. I don't know. Yeah, it's so hard to fit into words, isn't it? But I can hear that you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. And I think when we're people pleasing, we are coming from lack, where we are not enough. That's where we then seek that outside of ourselves. So, oh, please tell me I'm enough if I'm doing this and doing that and showing up this way. And you're never gonna experience it that way, because it always is an inside job. And when we feel that abundance, we simply trust. Indeed, we just trust that there's enough and that we are enough, and that comes from this feeling of wholeness and oneness. So it's a very different way of living and making choices in our life. Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to our choice box?
Yeah, would love to hear your choice back.
Renske, I don't have one.
You don't have one. I can start. I will start. You can have a think about it. I know one. Okay, my joy spark was yesterday. Yesterday was just a little thing, but often they are. I picked up the girls from school, so my two bonus daughters, and then with Lily, my biological daughter, we go to pick up the other two. And the middle one, Lana, she asked me, "Oh, Renske, I made this poem in school. Do you want to come in to have a look?" And just the pure joy and this proud sense on her face just made me sort of lit up. Yeah, so it was just I really was feeling into her joy, and that was lighting up the joy spark in me. So we went in and, she showed very proudly her poem that was hanging on the wall. So that was my joy spark yesterday.
Nice.
Hmm.
Bless her.
Do you
Okay,
have
I've
one?
got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there again, it's very simple. I think I was trying to think of one that was relating to people pleasing, but that hasn't come. So this morning I went out for a nice walk. It's getting lighter here, and it's so lovely. So I
Hmm.
went out for a walk quite early this morning, and yeah, as I was coming back down the hill towards my house, the sun was coming up, and it was just really beautiful. In fact, I took a video actually. So when we post this episode, I'll put it in our stories on Instagram. And then when I came back, I got in the shower and Tom's just started to learn the guitar. And so he's like,
Hmm.
oh, he had his first lesson yesterday and he said, I really want to play you James Bond. He's been learning James Bond. So I was in the shower and he was there in the bathroom with his guitar and Ren was dancing to this terrible version of James Bond. It was just really silly. But yeah, we talk about zooming out, don't we? Just zooming out, these like little moments in our family life that just so silly and funny,
Yeah.
that bring me so much joy and connection. So yeah, that's my joy spark for this
I
week.
love that. Absolutely love that. Good on him for practicing. It's so good to continue to learn new skills, to keep an open mindset and to continue to grow, really. Yeah. Love
Yeah,
that.
I think this is the thing. We really want men to see us struggling with things, and
Yeah.
persevering. I think that's such a good thing for children to see in their grown-ups. So,
Mm.
yeah, he's definitely got a long way to go. He'll be practicing a lot for sure.
Beautiful. All right. Shall we breathe together to close?
We'll soon take a short moment to ground and anchor together. If this conversation resonated and you'd like to go a little deeper, we'd love to welcome you into our Joy Circle, a monthly newsletter where we share extra reflections, meditations, and resources to support you. You can find us on Instagram at School of Joy Podcast, and we'd love for you to support us on our mission to spread more light and joy in the world by sharing with family and friends. You'll find all the links in the episode description. Thanks again for listening.
Let us take a deep breath. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And anchoring our energy down into the earth.